Okay, guys. So if anyone is here, just want you to pop in and make a comment in the comment section. Okay, is anyone here? Okay, if anyone is here, if you can just let me know you're here by making a comment in the comment section. Okay. Well, I'm just going to get started. If you guys are watching this on the replay, I definitely want to thank you guys for joining us here. Let me just go back to my OBS. Okay. And so, what I'm hoping to do, guys, is to have kind of a regular live stream here by way of YouTube. I was thinking about also doing Zoom, but YouTube is a way that we can keep it here and anyone can watch it later. You can kind of review it later instead of having a one-time thing that if you miss class. So that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm hoping that you guys can hear this message because I feel like I may be talking to no one. But yeah, I wanted to mention that I know that there have been some problems responding to questions in the Canvas, and we are going to try to address that by creating a situation that allows you to put your comments right into the system, like right into the Canvas. And I think there's a way to do it, but I'm not sure. So um, if you can just bear with me, if you can just email me your answers, email me your responses to the questions that I post up, that would be super helpful. Um, so right now, what I'd like to do is just go to, I would like to switch over to the PowerPoint as we are going to be ending and we are moving on to, let's see here. Oh, it's Maria. Yes, we can definitely speak after this. For the rest of you guys, if you guys are here, just feel free to kind of pop in, make a comment, um, and I will let you know. It's good to know that you guys are here. So give me a comment to let me know that you're here. Okay. Um, so what I'm going to do is put up uh, the PowerPoint here. Let's see. Hopefully it comes through. Let's see if we go to. Let's see if I can get this right. Files. To 6 and 7. So I hope that you guys are able to see this. Let's see. Are you guys able to see that? Uh-oh. I'm not sure you are able. Let's see. Okay. So let me know if you guys can see this. I'm going to go back into the YouTube chat to see if you can see it. Hi, Ormi. Hi, Jacqueline. Hi, Shad. How's it going? Are you guys able to see my full screen? No, you are not. Oh, okay. I see that you're not able to see the whole screen. Um, give me a second, guys. I'm gonna try to work it out so that you guys can see my entire screen. If you would just bear with me, please, just for a second. Files. Okay. Let's go to OBS. Settings. Okay, so let's display. That's the display capture. I'm assuming that you guys cannot see. It's only showing that top corner. Man. All right, give me a second. that's not helping. Um, no, that's not helping either. Oh, terribly sorry, guys. All right. I'm really sorry I'm having some trouble, guys. Let's see what you guys are saying. Yeah, we're only seeing the top. I can see the top left corner. Yes, I see that, and I'm trying to remedy that problem right now, guys. If you can just bear with me a second. Display capture. Remove. Yes. Okay, so let me try this again. Add display capture. Source visible. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. How about now, guys? Can you see the whole thing now? Okay. Okay, so this is so terrible, guys. I'm so sorry about this live stream. How about now, guys? Are you able to see the full screen now? Okay. This is dead. This is so bad. Okay, copy. Hang on, guys. Okay. Okay. I know that you can see me right now. I'm just trying to work this out. Give me a second. This is a freaking disaster. Okay, guys. So now I think that you can see everything. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me. Let me know in the comment section right now if you can see everything clearly and if you can hear me clearly with no problems. So right now, I'm actually monitoring the stream on my phone, but I think that I'm monitoring it on my phone. It looks like you can see the whole screen. Okay, so let me know in the comment section if things are going well. Okay, Shad says we can see the PowerPoint clearly now. Okay, so let me go back to OBS and video capture. So, thank you guys for sitting through that. I know that was super difficult. I can see better. Jacqueline Puda says, thank you. Okay, great, great, great. Okay, so I'm really sorry for that. And what I think I'd like to do, I don't know if next week we're going to move to Zoom where I can actually see you guys or if we're going to just stay here on YouTube. I like it better on YouTube because I can really kind of save my session and allow people who aren't here to kind of log in and see it later. And so that's really important to me. Yeah, Ann says all good. Jacqueline says perfect. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me. So, why don't you guys comment in the comment section how you guys are doing with this coronavirus? how have you guys been feeling? Are you safe? Does anyone have any family members that are sick? How have you been managing staying inside the house? Anne says, all good. Maybe she's responding to something else. Um, yeah, how have you guys been managing? So let me know in the comment section. While I'm waiting for you guys to comment, I can say that I've also been working for the Department of Education. So I've been doing counseling with my schools and kind of managing all that stuff. It's been pretty difficult to deal with as we are, trying to do counseling from school, and that's something that's super difficult because I have to kind of work from home and try to get kids online. A lot of my kids are low functioning, doing well. No one is sick, managing well. Okay, yeah. So a lot of people are doing well. A lot of people I know, and most New Yorkers are not really affected by this. Most New Yorkers are kind of hanging in, even though there are a lot of cases that we hear about. There are so many people who are, keeping safe and doing the right thing. It's just, we have 8 million people in this city, and most people are doing well, but a few people are not. So what I'm generally, what I'm still waiting for you guys to comment in. I see that Shad is doing well. No one is sick in his circle. Is managing very well. Um, Jacqueline says nobody's sick. It's a weird adjust, but it's been manageable. Absolutely. Having to stay in, especially if you are an outside person, and Maria, yeah, definitely. Looks like Maria's been having a hard time. Certainly, yeah, um, yeah, and we'll chat about that. Ormi's doing good. Yeah, so a lot of people are doing good. It's a difficult time to stay in right now. I dislike online classes, but I am adjusting as an essential worker. I'm trying to do my best to remain positive. Um, yes, yes, I completely understand. I don't like online classes either, and that's why I am choosing to come on here. I know a lot of your other professors may be doing. Actually, I don't know what a lot of other professors are doing. I don't know if they are just assigning you work. You do some reading, and then you have to answer some questions. And I thought it would just be a good idea to make our class as similar to our regular class as possible by coming on here. We're obviously not going to be on here for the full time, but we will be on here for a little while just to chat. And like I said, maybe next week we'll do a Zoom, or it may just be this. I really like the idea of being able to interact with you guys, and Zoom can afford that. But maybe, I don't know. Just keep your eyes on the stream, and on that discussion board, and I'll also figure out how we can get some answers, get a post going. I'm gonna figure out from my professor, from my not my professor, my chair, how I can set up a situation where I can post questions and you guys can answer. So that's going to be the goal. We're going to continue our lectures, and I'm going to just be posting a few questions like I did last week, and put them and try to put a place for them, put them in a place where you can kind of send them to me, and you know respond to the questions there. And I think that's kind of how we're going to move forward. Maria says, "But I'm here now." LOL. Good. I'm glad that you're here, Maria. I know things are tough right now, and certainly you and I will chat afterwards, okay? But for now, what I'd like to do just very briefly is kind of finish that chapter 6/7 thing that we have going on. And so that's going to be my goal at this time, okay? So let me see if I can go over to the PowerPoint. Let's hope that it's still working. And from there, we will just discuss anything there. If you have a comment or something, I'd like you to just put it in the comment section, and I can stop and kind of explain it. I'm going to kind of be maybe talking through the PowerPoints a little bit, popping back on to accentuate some points. But hopefully, hopefully that you guys get it, and we'll be able to post some questions afterwards. Okay, but please feel free to hit me up on the in the comment section here. Okay, so let me go over to this. Let's see if it's still there, and go to files. All right, so I'm switching over. Questions afterwards. Okay, but please feel free to hit me up. Okay. Yeah, so I can see that it's still showing there, and so let's just kind of review what we kind of went over last week. I know I'm flying through here, but in this section, we were really beginning to talk about the first 2 years of cognitive development. That was chapter 6. We were talking about language in general, and these are some of the questions that I'm going to ask you guys to answer. We talked about how language develops. We talked about gesturing, some cultural differences in language, as well as grammatical differences and how we handle mastering two languages. And then we began to talk about the theories of language learning, okay, and how that works. We talked about theory one was a more behavioral orientation. Kids, are rewarded, they're reinforced, or they are punished by using language. Theory two was the social impulses, right? So being able to foster language because of our social nature, the emotional messages that are built um, into speech, allow us to communicate. And then we discussed three, the infants teach themselves. And we talked about Noam Chomsky, uh, his idea that we are hardwired to understand language, to gain language, and that this right here, this language acquisition device, right? This language acquisition device is what allows us to develop language. Let me see if it's showing up on the screen there. Yes, so it is showing. Okay, great. So when we think about which perspective is correct, which of those theories is the most accurate, we really have to kind of consider this idea of the hybrid theory. This hybrid theory, of course, purports the idea that some aspects of language and learning may be best explained by one theory at one age and another theory at another age. Okay, so we are developing language using a variety of different kind of mechanisms or theories, if you will. All right, and that's kind of where we left off. We go back to this whole notion of theories of psychosocial development. We're getting into chapter 7 now. And when we think about, again, psychosocial development, we're thinking about how the child's some of the mental faculties, the psycho abilities, psychosocial abilities um, move forward. And we begin with the psychoanalytic theory, Freud, and we talked about the oral and anal stages being the first year and approximately second year for Freud. And when we talk about psychosocial development, we're talking about some of the conflicts within psychoanalytic theory. Some of the conflicts here. We talked about oral fixation. We talked about previously when we were speaking about psychoanalytic theory, how Freud and his ideas about oral fixation can then translate into a person who, oftentimes uses language a lot, talks a lot, likes to chew gum or chew pens or bite their nails. Um, we also discussed earlier on this whole notion of having an anal personality, right? Which is sometimes disputed by current developmentalists. But we have anal personalities. Um, uh, so those who are trying to develop control over situations. Um, when we continue on with theories of psychosocial development, again, we can't forget about Erickson. And so, of course, when we talk again about Erickson in terms of psychosocial development, we are talking about the first two stages, which, of course, in the psychoanalytic theory line up with Freud's oral and anal stage, this trust and autonomy stages, right? So the first stage, as we discussed before, are trust versus mistrust, right? So infants learn basic trust if the world is a secure place and their basic needs are met. And so we talked about personality types where the child is, or the adult growing up, the young adult grows into an adult who has this basic idea, this style of functioning where the glass is half full, the glass is half empty, right? And this goes back to the psychodynamic ideas that, again, that my early beginnings are going to lay the groundwork for the rest of my life. And if as an infant I am unable to manage, or I live in a world where my basic needs are met, then I am going to have this idea that, for the most part, it's a feeling. It's not a conscious idea, but this notion that my needs are going to be met. I'm going to be okay. When you look at trust versus mistrust, and the child has grown up in their first year of life in a situation where their basic needs were not met. And when we say basic needs for an infant, we're talking about what? What types of needs are we talking about when we're talking about an infant, right? What are the basic needs of an infant? Can someone comment in? When you think about the basic needs of an infant and how they may be met or not met, what type of needs, or what does a child need at that age? What do you guys think? Okay. I see Anne commenting, being fed, being cleaned. Yes, and actually, though those are being held as well. So emotional support. Yes, very good. Attention from David Ramos. Very good. Yes, those are the things. Yes, those are the things that a child does require, and when those things are met, love and attention. Yes, when those things are met, um, we do see a person who's growing up with the idea being fed. Yes, so physical and emotional needs basically for the child, and physical also. We talked. Somebody mentioned changing. Changing the diaper. Right. That's being. It's uncomfortable to have a poopy diaper. Right. It's uncomfortable to have a pee pee diaper for too long. So when if the child is uncomfortable when they're crying and when they're irritated, whether it's because they have a poop diaper, or if it's because they're hungry, or if they're seeking attention and that closeness from a mother or from a parent, then yes, those needs are met, right? And when the child's needs are met, they love and attention, yes. When those needs are met, we have a person who grows up with this idea that my needs are going to be met. I'm going to be okay. And that's super important to remember. Okay? Let's go back to the files. Okay. So let's look at autonomy versus shame and doubt, right? Toddlers either succeed or fail in gaining a sense of self rule over their bodies and their actions. So, of course, this is a stage that comes a little bit afterwards, and it's, let's see, yeah. So, when talking about these ideas, especially for children at this age, it's important to remember to give children, or to allow children, if you're working with children, and what's important for children at this stage, at the second year of life, is to allow them to gain a sense of self rule over their bodies and their actions. Allow them to explore. And so we want them to have a sense of autonomy. Now, we discussed earlier in the class, there are parts of the world where we don't want a child to be too autonomous, and we do want to limit their ability to self rule, because they might live in a part of the world where doing that can be extremely dangerous, right? And we talked about this earlier. I feel like other parts of the class are kind of merging into this one area when we talk about psychosocial development. But when you have a child with a sense of autonomy in an unsafe rural or kind of backcountry environment where there are wild animals and there are environmental dangers around, that is something that could potentially harm a child. Okay, so let's go back to the files. Okay. Um, and so, continuing with this idea of developing psychosocial aspects of a child, we looked at psychodynamic, and so now let's look at behavioral. Okay, and so when looking at that, we are looking at one of the more famous psychologists who studied this, and his name was Bandura. Okay, Albert Bandura, social learning theory. And so, if you let's go back here. I wish there was a way to kind of just switch back and forth a lot easier. I wonder if I go to studio mode, if I can do this. No, it doesn't work from my perspective. Uh, Display capture. I'll have to practice this for next week. Well, it doesn't matter. I'll just continue saying what I was going to say. Um, we have discussed in the past how behaviorism is a style of learning that is based on the opposite of psychodynamic. We're no longer dealing with um, things in the past that impact your child, your life today. We're dealing with rewards, reinforcements, and consequences that are guiding and shaping and molding your world today. And so, what Albert Bandura does now is he includes this social aspect and this modeling aspect. When we were looking at strict behaviorism before, we were not looking at role models. The previous idea of behaviorism that we explored really was more about the individual receiving benefits, or right, if I'm going to receive a reinforcement for doing something, then we're talking about I'm going to be doing it more often because I'm receiving these reinforcements. Or if I'm receiving a punishment or whatever consequence I receive is going to impact my behavior. And so Albert Bandura is a behaviorist, but he moves on to he moves in a different direction. Okay, so his idea is this social learning theory. And so after this session here, I'm going to post a I'm going to post a video of Albert Bandura and this classic study of the Bobo doll. Okay, so parents mold an infant's emotions and personality through reinforcement and punishment. Behavior patterns acquired by observing the behavior of others. And so this is really the beginning of a movement where we began to see that behaviorism was changing. If I'm doing something, and I wish we could watch this video. I wonder if we can watch this video here. Let's see. Let's say YouTube. See if this is working. YouTube.com. We'll say Bobo doll experiment. Okay, yeah. Let's see if it plays a little. First, let me just preface it with the idea. Let me just get back over here. Let me just preface what we're going to see. Again, as we were previously discussing, this whole notion of social reinforcement and being the rules of behaviorism apply. However, they apply. The rules of behaviorism apply, but vicariously. In other words, if I see someone else receiving a reinforcement for something, that's going to make me more likely to do it, even though I've never received that reinforcement. And if I see someone else receiving a punishment for doing something or saying something, it's as if I'm receiving that punishment. I'm also less likely to do it, right? And again, we began this course by talking about some of the ideas that we're going to talk about in this class are very common sense, things that you kind of know intuitively. And so, of course, we all know that when you were in school, if you saw another child doing something and getting attention from the teacher or getting extra credit from a teacher, you're more likely to do that. And if you see a kid passing a note, if you see a kid doing something wrong and he gets punished, he gets suspended, he gets into trouble, his parents get called, and you see that, you're going to say, oh, wow, I think I'm not going to do that because I don't want that to happen to me, right? And so there was a famous study called the Bobo doll, just to begin talking about the impact of modeling, the impact of children watching other kids behave, children watching just other people in general behave, and some of the things that they do by simply watching others, as opposed to not watching others. And so in this Bobo doll experiment, we're going to see a video of children who are exposed to a video of an adult punching and kicking this Bobo doll. If you guys are very young, you may not know what a Bobo doll is, but a Bobo doll is that little blow up, sounds awful, like a blow up doll that children play with, and you kind of punch it and it goes down, but it comes right back up, right? Like it bobs like that, right? And so the children are exposed to a video of an adult abusing the Bobo doll, hitting it with hammers and doing all kinds of things to it. And then they were exposed to the Bobo doll. And so we see the children who observed that aggressive behavior modeling it. They're reproducing that behavior. And then there were another set of children who were observed, who saw a video of an adult interacting in a gentle way with the Bobo doll. They were not doing these aggressive things. A lot of this goes back to what we say, like, oh, what are children playing video games? What is the music that they're listening to? What is the TV shows and movies that they're watching? Is that contributing to them engaging in school violence and all these things? All of that discussion is kind of rooted in this. Okay, so let's see that video and let's see what we see here. I hope I don't get in trouble for playing a video of a video. Let's see.
The segment you're about to see is taken from an early experiment on learning of aggressive styles of behavior through modeling. Children watched a filmed adult perform novel aggressive acts toward a inflated doll, and the physical aggression was accompanied by novel hostile remarks. We later measured how much of this modeled aggression the children had learned just by watching. Now, the measurement of learning of aggression uses simulated targets rather than live ones. For example, to test how well bombardiers have learned bombing strategies, you would use simulated targets rather than require them to bomb San Francisco or New York. The model pummeled a doll with a mallet, for example, to test how well, flung it in the air, kicked it repeatedly, threw it down and beat it. It was once widely believed that seeing others vent aggression would drain the viewer's aggressive drive. As you can see, exposure to aggressive modeling is hardly cathartic.
Okay, I think it's important to kind of just pause here and listen to what Bandura just said. That it was once believed that watching someone else engage in an aggressive behavior would actually drain the individual of those aggressive drives. In other words, it's cathartic to watch aggression happen, even if you're not doing it. But in Bandura's studies, we see that this is not, not necessarily true. We see that others, these children are engaging in the same behavior. It is not draining them of their aggressive tendencies. And well, I'll let the video continue. There's just like a minute more.
Exposure to aggressive modeling increased attraction to guns, even though it was never modeled. Guns had less appeal to children who had no exposure to the aggressive modeling. The children also picked up the novel hostile language. The room contained varied play materials.
Okay. Um, so yeah, we live in a world now where dangerous situations, school violence situations, are occurring more and more often in schools. And again, when something horrible happens, like a school shooting or anything like that, um, the minute something happens, both the media as well as school officials and mental health, school counselors, school psychologists, and things immediately begin to ask, um, what were the children watching? What were they listening to? What type of video games? And so it's an important question to consider when we look at this idea that children model what they see, but does it have a limit? To what extent do they model? Hitting a Bobo doll is very different than mowing down 10 people in a school with an automatic rifle, you know? And of course, we know people who play very violent video games like Call of Duty and games like that, where people are killing nonstop and never do anything, right? And they grow up from a very young age or playing Grand Theft Auto, which is in some way a more violent game than a war game, right? So it's people. If you don't know what Grand Theft Auto is, it's a video game where people are walking around an urban street like New York City or LA and just committing crimes all over the city, and you get points for the more things you do. And so it's a very popular game. At least it was a few years ago. It's lost a little bit of its popularity, but to what extent are children actually modeling what they see? Are videos different from like real people? Well, sometimes we watch TV and we see pretty awful things on TV. Are they modeling that? So it's a delicate question and a very poignant question considering, you know, how we deal with children today. Okay, so right, so this is so we're dealing with behaviorism. So now we go to this notion of the cognitive theory as we continue these theories of psychosocial development. The cognitive theory, right? The working model. And basically, it's the set of assumptions that an individual uses to organize perceptions and experiences, right? And so when we think about that notion, that idea, it kind of sounds like the schema, right? If you recall when we were talking about um, cognitive development and Piaget, we were talking about this idea of thought containers. They're called schemas, but I like to call them thought containers, if you recall, that organize all of our ideas, our perceptions, our experiences, our biases into kind of one file or one container, so to speak, right? And so a person might assume that other people are trustworthy and be surprised by this evidence that this working model of human behavior is erroneous, right? So, again, we're talking about a schema or a situation where you think there is equilibrium, right? I might assume that other people are trustworthy, and when someone proves themselves to be not trustworthy, it's where we begin to see the problem. Um, we see this idea that children's interpretation of early experiences is more important than the experiences themselves. Oh, and so that is an important idea to remember when talking about this idea of cognitive theory, that a child's cognitive, let's see if I can, I'm going to attempt to do something. Let's see if it works. No, I don't want that one. I want this one. Let's see if I can make myself smaller here. And then bring that down. Nope, that doesn't work. I'm trying to bring myself up. Let's see. Yeah, display capture device. No. Oh man. All right, maybe I should just stop messing with this. I may have just screwed this up. All right, let me just go back out here. Let's see if I can put this back up here. All right. So um, we were talking about this idea that a child's perception of an experience is more important than the experience itself. Um, when I was working as a school psychologist in an elementary school in Queens, but this child was 5. I was doing an evaluation on a 3-year old. And so this concept also applies to children who are just a little bit older. All right, we're talking about the second year of life, but this notion of a child's interpretation of an idea, of an experience, is more potent, more valuable than the experience itself. So here's an example of that. I was conducting a psychological evaluation on a 5-year old. He had just turned 5. He was just out of 4. He was only a few days 5 years old, right? And when interviewing him and talking to him, he told me, um, he told me, you know, about his mother and his father, who were now divorced. By the way, I'm gonna be dishing a little dirt here. This was such a long time ago, but and I said, "Oh well, do you still get to see mommy and daddy?" Because I'm thinking they live in separate places, and he says, "Well, yeah. Sometimes I wake, I get up in the middle of the night, and I see that daddy is in the house." And I said, "Okay. And what? And do you talk to them?" And I say, he goes, "No, I don't talk to them. I'm actually, I'm afraid. I'm actually using more adult language than the child would because I'm paraphrasing. But he was basically afraid of his father now because his father was hurting mommy. And so I thought that there was a domestic violence type of situation, right? I thought that the parents are going through a divorce or the parents are going through a separation, and he comes over and he's beating her or he's physically abusing her and he's hurting her. And so, when doing this kind of evaluation, I have to dance lightly and dance delicately around these issues, and I have to have conversations with the mother who, I have to kind of share these things in a delicate way, what the child told me. And so when I told the mother what I had been told, she was shocked because she then revealed to me that they were having some problems. The husband and wife, little lint thingies flying around. The mother and father were having marital problems, and they were separated, and the husband was living in another house, another apartment. But when he did come over, he was not hurting his wife in the way that the child thought he was hurting his wife. He was hurting her in a different way, if you catch my drift. And so when you think about what two people do when they're alone and that certain urge takes hold and they do their thing, from the perspective of a child, that can appear painful. It can appear to be something that's not fun when quite frankly doing that is the opposite. So if you get what I mean, the parents were doing these things, um, and the child was perceiving these acts. He would hear it. He would kind of walk in and sometimes see parts of it, and his perception of the actual experience, which is a pleasurable experience, his perception of that experience was a violent one, was one that is not good. And so that is part of realizing that the perception or what the child thinks and feels about something is more important than that something itself. Okay, so let's go back here to files. Okay, so new working models can be developed based on new experiences or reinterpretation of previous experience. So I gave you an example of a child misinterpreting a situation, but I don't think for a child that we want a child to experience reinterpreting that situation for too long. Okay. Um, so let's go over a few infant psychosocial development theories, right? So this notion of the social cultural theory, infant emotional development, shaped by the entire social context and social and cultural context. And so what we're talking about here is, how a child is developing because of where they live. I think in the beginning of class, I kind of asked you guys to imagine a world where you grew up, you had the same biological parents, but you grew up in a completely different country. Iran, China, Russia, Brazil, India, Australia. Just imagine what your lives, how different they would be growing up in all of those different places, right? Your emotional development and your entire life would be shaped by the social and cultural values of that country. And so that's what we're talking about when talking about socio-cultural theory that helps the child develop, right? As part of one of the factors that helps to develop. When we're talking about ethno theories, right? Theory underlying values and practices of a culture, but is not apparent to the people within the culture. So I know that there's a few of you guys remaining in here. I think maybe five or six of you, but that's okay. I would like to know. I'm asking you for your help and for your participation. Grant. So I've been not following the comments. Grand Theft Auto 5 is still very popular. Yes, Grand Theft Auto 5, I guess, is still, I guess, and you must play that game. Um, Zoom allows the switch to be easier. Yes, I know. Switch sharing your screen is a lot easier in Zoom. I'm also probably not doing this as well as I should be. Um, Looking at some emails. Okay, as I work here. Um, but yeah, Zoom is easier. But I don't know if I can kind of post it and continue to record it. So that's an issue. But maybe we'll do Zoom next week. We'll see. We might do this again. But I want your guys' opinions. When it comes to raising a child in this country, what is it that parents want their kids to be? Right? So some of you guys are parents, or I think some of you are parents. Um, some of you may have, um, little nieces, nephews, little brothers and sisters, and you are watching your parents still parent in a way, or if you have nieces and nephews, you're watching your aunts and uncles parent those young children. And many of you are, you're teenagers, you're still maybe 18, 19, 20, and still under the care and guidance, so you're not too far removed from being a child. I don't mean to insult you guys, but you were a kid not so long ago, and you're still in tune with what your parents want. And so if you think about what do parents in this country want? Can you guys comment in the comment section? What do parents want for their kids? What do they want their kids to be? If you can comment in the comment section, those of you who are remaining, what is it that we want our children in this country to be? And from a very young age, what are some of the values that we hold as parents from birth through young adulthood? And I'll wait to see if a couple of comments pop up. Let's see. Productive members of society and whole individuals. Mm, I enjoyed the YouTube. Maria is funny. So, Anne, that's a very complex answer. I think that's the politically correct answer. I think if you ask any parent who is going to be recorded on videotape, they might say that. They might say, "Yes, I want my child to be a productive member of society, a whole individual." Shad says, "Good parents want their children to grow up to be productive citizens." I guess I asked you guys to comment and you didn't go where I wanted you to go. But that's okay because what I was thinking, and you let me know in the comments if you guys agree. Many parents, I would even say most parents in America, it's an American value to have your kid be smart, right? That's something that Americans are concerned about. So again, we're talking about ethno theories, okay? Ethno theories. Things about children to be financially and socially successful. David, yes. But what I was getting at is we want our kids to be smart. And Jacqueline says, being good kids, so kind, be involved in the multiple things, have a good job, etc. Where I was going with was intelligence and smart, right? You can't speak for bad parents. Um, if you think about how parents are concerned about their children's intellectual capacity, um, they want them to be as good of a student as they can and get the best grades and be at the top of the class and get into a good high school and get into a good college and eventually, I guess, yeah, get a good job. But the root of all those things for many Americans, and you can tell me in the comment sections if you disagree, Americans are concerned with having smart kids. There's all these ideas about playing classical music while the baby is still in the belly, and all kinds of things and apps to make your kids smarter. We want them reading early. We want them doing math earlier. If we have an opportunity to put them in a gifted class, well, that's great. Put them in a gifted class. And all of these things coming from divorced parents too much. Yeah. Yeah, so we want our kids to be smart. And that's an ethno theory that many of us in the United States have grown up with. We've grown up a lot with um, our parents pushing us for academic and intellectual success. And that whole idea surrounds parenting and schools. That whole idea permeates everything that we do in schools and everything that many parents do. That's not the way it is in every country. True, they have programs like Your Baby Can Read. Yeah, yeah. Does anyone know if you lived in Italy, um, what is the thing that parents want their kids to be? And here's a clue. Someone in the comments section, yeah, that's what I'm going through. Someone in the comments section has given a clue to in Italy what most parents are most concerned about what they want their kids to be. And it's not smart. Of course they want their kids to be smart. I don't think any parent wants, a child who's not smart, right? No parent wants that. But what are they super concerned with? What are parents in Italy, what is the primary thing they think about when they want their kid, when they think about their kid growing up, having a life? Someone kind of put it in the comment section. Um, I'll see if anyone comments. Financial stability, hardworking, no and no. Okay, you guys are taking too long to comment. The answer is nice. Simpatico. Okay, that's an Italian word for kind, kind hearted, gentle, a nice person. in the comment section, whoops, in the comment section, um, Jacqueline Puda says, being good kids. And she was kind of hinting at it there, that we want our children to be good. Not smart necessarily, but good and nice. And that's what Italian parents, so their whole parenting paradigm, their whole parenting mindset is not, he's got to be the smartest, he's got to be the best, he's got to get the best grades and get into the best schools and get the best job and be the top of his class and have an over average IQ. Maybe they want their kids to be, as do as well as they can, like any parent, but their primary goal, the demands are so low. Well, I'm not so sure about what you mean by that. If you mean by their academic demands, if you mean their intellectual demands, or what types of demands, but certainly the parental drive is simpatico, is nice. Okay, and so that's an example of ethno theories really underlying our values, right? Personal theories arising from what we have here, personal theories arising from family and personal history. Okay, so there are things about, things within a certain family. For example, we are not good at sports. We are not good at math. We are not good at certain things, or the opposite. The Jones family are good at sports. This is what we do. We are carpenters. We are electricians. We are a family of doctors, right? And so, growing up with a family or personal history that plays a role in your development. I'll give you another example, a short example, okay? We're going to be moving on. We're going to be moving on and ending in a few minutes, guys, okay? But here's the example. I think I mentioned for many years that I was lifeguarding on the beach at Jacob Riis Park. Um, the beach tends to employ three types of employees: teachers, right? People that work in the school system who have their summers off, like me. Firemen, because it's located in Rockaway, there happens to be a lot of firehouses and firefighters that live in the area and that are great swimmers. So it employs like teachers, firefighters, and adults. I'm sorry, like college kids, like high school seniors and college kids who are good at swimming and running and can save lives. And so a few years ago, there was a guy working there, a young guy. He was 18 or 19. I think he might have been a junior. You have to be 16 to be a lifeguard. When we're talking about personal histories and family histories, there was a kid who joined our team. Great swimmer, nice kid from Rockaway. His parents were doctors. They were not firemen, but he was a high school kid. He was like a summer between junior and senior year. And if many of you don't know this, but the culture of lifeguards is kind of a party culture. You can imagine there's a lot of smoking going on, there's a lot of drinking, there's a lot of partying. A lot of firefighters engage in this behavior who are also lifeguards, a lot of hanging out. It's not a very intellectual job. And that's not to insult any firefighter or any teacher or any college student, because they all do they all do their jobs. But the whole lifeguard thing is not an intellectual job. It's drinking, it's hanging out, it's this is after work, but during the job, it's not a highly intellectual job. And the lifestyle that many lifeguards and firemen lead is a kind of a very laissez-faire kind of a just hang out and kind of party mentality. That's not to say that every fireman does that. Okay, um, I'm just saying that this is kind of what we see. Well, after a summer of partying and hanging out, the kid got drunk a couple of times after work. We were having like a staff softball game and stuff. And I had to take him home. I drove him home a couple of times. And he told his parents, the word is out that he told his parents that he wanted to become a firefighter. Well, his parents did not allow him to return to the beach, even though he was a great lifeguard and wanted to come back. It's a great summer job for high school kids and college kids. But the reason, and he told us the reason that his parents didn't want him to come back to the beach was because he expressed an interest in spending the rest of his life being a firefighter slash lifeguard in the summer, and kind of assuming that kind of easy lifestyle, a lot of time off. I'm not saying firefighters' jobs are easy, because they're not. Lifeguards, sometimes are involved in very serious rescues, but they did not want him to follow that line of work. And why? Because we are not firefighters. We are not lifeguards. We are doctors, right? So the father is from a family of doctors. And they did not want their son becoming a blue collar worker, which is what a firefighter is. And lifeguarding in New York City is nothing. It's just a stupid summer job. It's the greatest job, but it's not, it's not like being in Hawaii or LA where that's a full-time job. But that would kind of be the equivalent of being like an EMT, or like a lower level firefighter. That's how they work in LA and Hawaii. But here he wanted to be a firefighter and do the lifeguard thing in the summer, like many firefighters did. And his parents were like, "No way, we don't do that." And if you think about a young 18-year-old guy, his development is being altered by what we were just talking about, and that is personal theory. We don't do that, okay? And so when we, just a couple of more ideas, just in terms of parenting in general. We have these two concepts here: proximal parenting and distal parenting. Let me just check the clock here. Okay, we're almost done, guys. When we talk about proximal parenting, right? Caregiving practices that involve being physically close to the baby, with frequent holding and frequent touching, right? When you think about the word proximity, that's where we have this word proxy, right? Close. A voting proxy means someone who is close. And so there are parenting styles. You would think, well, doesn't everybody raise their child being close to the baby, frequent holding and frequent touching? Well, no. We have this notion of distal parenting as well, right? Caregivers practices that involve remaining distant from the baby, providing toys, providing food, and face-to-face communication with minimal holding and minimal touching. And so I want you guys to understand that this is not a judgment on any parenting style. We should all be parenting our children. All parents are parenting their children with the same hopes and goals that are part of their culture. And this is not a knock on them. This is not saying, well, one is better than the other, right? And so when we look at Keller, who was the group, the researcher who put together a team to research how different parents, parent their child, and what types of children are these parenting styles producing, right? So notable cultural differences exist with newborns. Culture is especially pivotal for the proximal or distal response. So when we have distal parenting, all things being equal, what we have is parents who are, a little bit hands off. They're not so close. They are providing toys, and the rest of the childhood moves along in that fashion too. They're not super physically close, maybe emotionally close, but physically they're not so close. It produces children who are very self-aware, but in some ways less obedient. And I'm going to also add, perhaps entitled. They may feel that they are owed something, right? This sense of entitlement. And again, not a judgment on these children, but just sometimes distal parenting produces that. But being self-aware early on is a benefit. Proximal parenting may produce toddlers who are less self aware but more compliant, right? So, because of that closeness, there is more power, more authority that the parent can wield, and that causes the child to be more compliant. The child is more willing to listen to the rules and create a situation where they are more obedient. Okay. And so, in summary, every aspect of emotional development interacts with cultural beliefs, as we've talked about, expressed in parental actions. So, when we think about, the culture that you live in, the political climate that you live in, um, the countries, the values that you live with, okay, the personal histories in your family that you live with all impact your parents and your school's raising of a child, right? Or if you're talking about a young child, it's certainly influencing the primary parents, right? The people who are the primary teachers who are parents, right? Uh, Here in the second bullet point, no culture anywhere encourages caregivers to be indifferent to infant emotions. So while we talk about, um, you know, distal parenting, we are, we're not saying that any culture or any society is encouraging their caregivers to be cold and emotionless to their babies, right? That's not what we're saying. Cultural differences may become encoded in the infant brain. We call that a cultural sponge by one group of scientists, right? So, um, this type of culture maybe is ingrained upon a child. It's how they grow up, and we know this. We can speak to this, especially us in New York City, right? And have you guys ever have spoken to other parents, for example? So here's an example. I know in my school I have a lot of Caribbean employees, Caribbean staff members, especially in my last school. And sometimes some of our children can be very disrespectful. And a lot of the Caribbeans that I work with get highly offended when children get super disrespectful and get really nasty with teachers, because culturally, where they come from, the Caribbeans, that is something that's not done even by a bad child. They do not speak to an adult or a teacher, especially a teacher, in such a manner. And so, when you look at, this whole notion of of you know cultural differences being ingrained into an infant brain, we can see how someone who had a childhood in the Caribbean, for example, and maybe adolescence, right? Maybe they come here as a young adult. They come here as a 22-year-old and live in the United States and take a job in the school system with American kids who can be very nasty to their teacher. How that can be, very uncomfortable for some of our Caribbean staff members, right? And so here we have the same situation, many miles apart. Here's two photos of what we call intimate parenting, and here you have, you have this mother and looks like a baby girl in the Sudan, and they are very close. um, and they are touching, a good example of proximal parenting. And here you have this father in Germany who has a child about the same age and who's, feeding themselves. And the father is distal parenting. Does this mean that the father is not concerned with the safety of his child or in developing a relationship with his child? No, it is the, again, cultural and societal impacts and values of the society that is creating this parenting style. Not for the better, not for the worse. It's just what it is. Okay. Okay, so we are just about done, guys. I wanted to make just a couple of more quick announcements before I let you go. First of all, well, three things. First of all, I want to really thank you guys for hanging in there. I see that there are 10 of you watching. I know that the majority of you have been watching for most of this stream. Some of you guys popped in a little bit later. I hope that you're able to watch the full stream. In the beginning, it's pretty rough. There's a lot of me figuring out the tech, and it's embarrassing for me because I consider myself a tech guy, but I'm not a live streamer. I'm not a live stream YouTuber. So that stuff is new to me. Number one, I appreciate you guys being here and sitting through all the tech difficulties at first, but I definitely will appreciate it. Number two, I want to talk about our end of year projects, right? So I still want to have that project be in place, um, and I'm willing to, by email, willing to answer any questions that you guys have about that. I mean, obviously, with the conditions being what they are, you're not going to be able to meet with children and meet with parents. But I hope that using Zoom or Skype or any kind of thing like that, you're able to, or even the telephone, even on your phones, get a hold of some of the parents that you are working with, observing those children, and really speaking to the parents about some of the milestones, some of the strengths and weaknesses, cognitive levels of that child that you're observing. So the final thing is that oh man, I forgot what the final thing was. Oh, so we are going to I'm going to try to put a place or find somewhere in Canvas. I know because this happened with my other class too. I put some questions up and I would like you guys to respond to some of these things, right? Because I still would like you guys to be able to read the parts of the text that correspond to what we're talking about here, and I would like you to answer some questions surrounding it. Um, I know that the technical aspect of where to put it on Canvas is still an issue for me. I need to speak with my chair to figure that out, or maybe I'll just have you guys email me. But just keep your eyes on Canvas on the announcement section. That's where I'm going to be kind of announcing what's happening or what we're doing. But for now, if you can just email me those questions, the answers to those questions, that would be great. Okay, so let's see. I whoops. Let's see. Quit that and go here. That can be tough. Having to follow what your parents want. Okay, yeah. So that's pretty much it, guys. Really appreciate you guys sticking around and being in the live stream with me. So if there are no further questions, I know that one person wanted to speak with me after. Maria, I think that's you. So if you wouldn't mind emailing me um, in the Canvas, I would appreciate it. Okay, so try to email me like in the course. Yes, so Anne is asking, should you be following what we're covering here? Yes. It would be great if you wanted to read ahead and read other parts, but I'm asking you to follow what we're covering here. Okay? Uh, so, uh, so the questions are due next week. Okay, the questions are due next week. Um, But if you can email them to me, and on Maria, if you can email me in the Canvas course and send me your contact information, I can get in touch with you this evening. Okay, so that's it, guys. I really appreciate you guys being around, and I will see you next week. I'll post in the announcements whether we're doing Zoom or here. I'll post a link, and you'll get the invite either way. Okay, thanks, guys. I'll see you later.